You can change your entire life by just changing one habit. Subscribe to our podcast and make listening a habit.
Change your mindset, manifest your dream life, and live magically with Rise and Align.
Raising the frequency one episode at a time.
Everything is always working out for us.
Hello and welcome back to the Rise and Align podcast, where we talk about all things high vibrational. We are your hosts. My name is Haley.
And I'm Demi, and today we're talking about our favorite TV shows. So just like books and music, you can use television shows to help you manifest, because good TV and good movies evoke emotions in you. And as we always talk about, how you feel is the most important thing, because it's what you act out of and it's what you attract into your reality. So that said, we're going to talk about some of our all-time favorite TV shows. I think my absolute number one TV show is Outlander.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, but it's just, if you haven't seen it, you have to watch it. It is everything. And I think this episode's going to be a little bit different, because we are always talking about positivity and how important it is to intake things that make you feel good. And though this show does have a lot of like romance and bravery and good moments, it also does have some dark moments. But I kind of think that's what makes some TV shows so good. Like, it really does pull you in when it's not just a vanilla, very all positive, happy-go-lucky storyline. It's like, what's gonna happen next? Like, are they gonna survive? Like, you know?
Yes. Yeah, and it's more relatable in a sense, and also it really taps into this concept of like duality in life. Like, there's always an equal and opposite. Like, nothing is happy all the time necessarily, and I think that it's just important to incorporate that, because that's just how life is. And I think it's important to navigate some of those more contrasting aspects of life. And just, so I think that is why it makes it good, because it's just more realistic. Not that we are like super realistic people, but it's just like relatable.
What does that mean anyway? But no, truly, like, on an emotional scale, like, if you don't have the depth of heartbreak, you can't enjoy the depth of love as much, you know? Like, if you haven't ever experienced anything bad, you might not necessarily appreciate the good as much. And I think that, you know, not only is it relatable, but it brings you through a real life kind of up and down, which is how life is. Like, Russ, here we go again. Russ has that song called Waves, and that really is, you know, how life is. And so many people will be like, my whole life is falling apart right now. Like, I've been trying to manifest XYZ and everything's just going wrong. And it's like, sometimes that literally means that the universe is getting rid of what's no longer serving you in order to make room for the new, in order to make room for something better. Like, good things have to fall apart for better things to fall together. I think that's so true. And I feel like a lot of not only our favorite TV shows, but books really just show that.
Yeah. And it's like a pathway to growth and expansion. Without those experiences, you may not grow as much, and you can't build relationships as deep as you can when you do go through those things. So it's like you develop a deeper connection with these characters as well, because you're able to watch them go through these things and then come out stronger on the other side. And that's inspiring. And also just like you root for them, so you get like really attached to them, and it's lovely.
Yeah,
sometimes.
absolutely. You really get to know them like as a person. Like, it's the real good TV shows and movies convince you that that character is a real person and that they have like all these characteristics, and that's what good actors and actresses do too. Like, you really believe that they are that person experiencing those emotions, and I think that's a beautiful art, really.
Yeah. And your favorite shows, like, they bring you through a journey of a different life, and we kind of talked about this in our favorite book episode, but you kind of get to experience these different worlds, these different time periods without actually being able to be there, because we don't have time machines yet in this dimension.
I'll find a rock one day. Don't you worry.
Yes. If you know, you know, like, especially the Outlander.
Not me touching every rock I find.
Yes, literally. I'm like, is this
is this it?
We're so funny in the woods. We're like, even not necessarily related to time travel, but in the woods we're always like, look at that rock. Ooh, look at that mossy rock. We gotta go touch that mossy rock.
Just in case. Okay.
Just in case. But it's really so good. And obviously, if you've listened to this podcast or you know us in any way, like, we love Scotland, and it is, especially more towards the beginning, and from what I hear towards the end, is very like Scotland-esque. You know, they're in Scotland, and it is a period piece, which pretty much I feel like every show that I like is some sort of period piece. So you get to see life in a different time frame, and honestly, it just like feels like my soul coming home. And I think that's what makes good TV. Is like, you fall in love with it, you resonate with it in some way, or it's like it just touches some part of you that, I don't know. Yeah. It
just evokes that emotion, you know. Mm-hmm. Outlander also has some aspects to it that I really love. Claire is a doctor and a surgeon, so a lot of what she's like talking about and doing in the show is realistic. She starts to use like herbalism, because in the show she goes back to like the 1700s time period, and so she's like foraging, and then she's also at one point developing penicillin from mold, which I was like, this is so cool and like accurate. So like there's aspects of it that are really neat like that. There's so much history in that show, and there's so much like patriotism, and it's great.
Yeah. And there definitely are themes around like witch and witchcraft. Mm-hmm. And so that's really interesting. And the main character, I love that she's like a main character role that's very strong and like, you know, fighting for the good without actually being like a fighter. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what Jamie's for. Mm-hmm. And so she still gets to be like in her feminine, but she's like very much like still like a very good character, like going
she's very strong-willed,
you know.
Yeah.
And, mm-hmm. Like she's like fighting but not physically fighting. Mm-hmm. And I love that.
Yeah, definitely. So I will say I will not recommend watching TV shows right before bed, mostly because of the blue light, but also like seeing a lot of like gore and stressful situations right before bed isn't great for a peaceful sleep. I've definitely experienced some things myself where I'll like watch a show that I love, but will have like really gory scenes, and then I have like nightmares that are not good. So not right before bed, but I don't know, I like watching TV in the evening, like after dinner for a little while.
Yeah. And I would say even with my favorite shows, there are scenes where I'm like, ooh, I don't think I could watch this or whatever. So a lot of times, like, you know, mute is your best friend. Like sometimes I'll mute through certain situations. And then also you can kind of protect yourself energetically as well when you're watching those. So, you know, you can envision the white light around you, or just like making sure you're grounded. I just think mindfully watching those things can be really, really, really important, especially in the more like gory or intense scenes, just to like make sure you're not getting like emotionally connected with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I am a person who, like, even if I'm playing like a video game or watching a show or something, if there's something stressful in the screen that I'm like paying attention to, I will literally be like and then like tense up and like be holding my hand in a fist and be like worried, like, because it really does evoke that emotion. So sometimes I have to like take a deep breath and be like, oh, right, no, I'm here. I'm not in the middle of a war. It's safe here. We're all good. Okay, this is just a show, and just be kind of conscious of that. But anyways, what's the next one you want to name?
Okay, so just because I had to like write a list, because I'm like, what shows do I like? Because like it takes me a long time to get through a TV show, so I like forget what I've even watched. But just because it's like trending right now, I would say Emily in Paris is one of my favorite shows. It is like, you know, there's romance, but I also just love like the fashion and the storyline, and I love that it's in Paris. Like, you just get to see just so many. I don't even know. It's like I could see myself being her, you know, like you can kind of like go through the storyline with her, and it's just like, I don't know, I just love it.
Yeah, she's a girl's girl. It is like very relatable. I do love the fashion aspect of it too, and like the French aspects of it. It is realistic. And I also like, I studied abroad, so then like seeing this girl who's like brave enough to move to a different country, and like, I don't know, just meeting people and, you know, getting connections and falling in love. Like it's just fun. It's a girly show. I love it.
Yeah, and like meeting friends and, you know, it's like seeing her like navigate her career and stuff too. It's good. And yeah, so I would recommend that. I'm not fully caught up on it yet, but I just love it.
Yeah, it's a great show. Well, everyone and their brother has seen this show, but there's a reason. And I was really late to the game with this one. Game of Thrones. You know, is life not focused around power in a lot of ways, and money and things like that? And I think that show, it has such a focus on that because it's all about like who's going to get the throne. And when I first started watching it, I was like, oh, it's too stressful, it's too negative, it's too gory. But there is such like an aspect of hope that like really pulls you in, and you really like fall in love with the characters, and you're like, you just want the last of the Starks to survive. Like, for the love of God, stop killing the Starks. And I think the other thing about this show that makes it so different from other shows is they do kill off main characters. And I'm shocked. It was not predictable. I'm shocked to the end. Like, what?
Shook.
Yeah, shook.
I do, yeah, it's probably one of the most like gory shows I've ever seen in my life. But it's also so magical. Like, there's dire wolves and dragons.
Oh, the dragons.
And I love like seeing the different areas of the realm, and
the castles are so cool.
Castles, it's beautiful. Like the scenery, and you know, I think the budget for the shows, or the seasons for the shows or whatever, was pretty significant, which is why they were able to film in like so many really beautiful places. So it's really cool. It's cool to see like the clothes, and again, it's more of a period piece. I don't know if it's not like based off of like necessarily a real story, so it's not like, I don't think it's in a specific time period, but it's definitely like older. And yeah, you really do like fall in love with these characters, and it's intense, which I love. An intense, like deep TV show. Like, you really see it all.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting because I just rewatched the show, and the first time I watched it like all at once in like a week. And the first time around, I had a different perspective of a particular character, that this time around I saw more of the crazy part in her, which I thought was interesting. So yeah, I don't know, it is fun to kind of rewatch and see if your perspective changes, or if there's like things that you missed and stuff like that, with your favorite TV shows anyway.
Yeah, totally. I also love that there are like there's a lot of like women characters to like to follow, and that you know, get to see their story, and that you kind of get attached to on different stages. And yeah, I like that.
So a friend and I were talking about religion a couple days ago, and how, because each person who believes in their religion, like if a person believes in it very strongly, then they're more likely to believe that somebody else's religion is wrong. And I think that in Game of Thrones, Daenerys believed in her own righteousness. Like, she never at any point thought that she was doing the wrong thing. She genuinely was acting from the right place, or she thought she was. But I think that power really gets to people's heads sometimes, and I think that show really showed that a lot, and it showed so much character development, and like a lot of psychology behind the characters was pretty accurate, like as to why people ended up the way they did or why they acted the way they did and stuff like that, which I thought made it very like realistic and really like pulled you in because you knew them, like you knew these people, they were real people.
Yeah. And yeah, you can see how like in situations like the good people get turned towards like more negative, but I think it is interesting because you can see them going down different paths, but watching like how different things like influence them then brings them to, you know, lean totally one way towards the other. But yeah, it's interesting to think about like if one thing happened differently, like the whole story could have been different too.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, that was cool. I also do wish there was like an alternate ending, but it was a decent ending, I guess.
Choose your own ending.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would say another, I guess, period piece that we all probably love is Bridgerton. Like that's another trendy.
The best. The best.
Similar themes like romance, a little bit of scandal, like fashion, love stories, just so good. Like estates, like beautiful like furniture and art, which I love to see. Like I'll be living in one of those places.
I'm obsessed.
Yeah.
Obsessed. Yeah. And same with Queen Charlotte, which is a spinoff from it. Those shows, if you don't want to watch something with so much like gore and negativity, Bridgerton and Queen Charlotte are great because there's not like a whole bunch of like violence or anything in there, but it's like there's drama and there's things that keep you hooked and you're interested in like what's gonna happen next or like what's this person gonna do or who are they gonna end up with. It's great. It's so good.
It doesn't have the gore, but it still has like the depth where it's like
and there's so much love story in it. I just love it. It's so good. And the dresses, like I want to be courted. I want to go to balls in dresses on a regular basis. Why did we stop doing that?
I know.
I just want to live that life.
That to like dating apps, like what?
I want to sit at home and learn how to play the piano and sew my little thing. You know, that's what I want to do.
And then wait to be called on or whatever.
I want to have men bring me flowers and chocolate while I sit in my tea room and
in your cute dress. Reading your little bookie book.
That's all I want to do. I don't know why we ever stopped that.
Yeah, I'm pretty mad about it. Like,
seriously,
rude.
Honestly. Okay, one that just has lived rent free in my mind since 2009 is the Vampire Diaries. If you haven't seen it, it's worth watching. I actually recently just started rewatching it, and I love it just as much. I was wondering because I did watch it when it first came out. I was like 17 when it first started playing, and now it's still just as good. Like there's so much, again, depth and drama and romance and mystery, and there's so much magic in the Vampire Diaries.
Yes.
Oh, it's full of magic.
Yes, I've watched it once, and it was probably like 4 years ago at this point, so I don't like remember it super in depth, but
you're still in love with Damon, aren't you?
Yes, like if we had to pick like top 5 like favorite TV characters ever, like he would be in there. Like,
Damon Salvatore.
Like,
forever love. Sorry.
Yes. Like it is like some of it is like a little too like teeny, I feel like.
Yeah.
Like a little too high school. But like there are so many other like aspects of it that are so good that make up for it. I'm like along those lines, and I haven't watched this like for many years, like probably since I was a teen, but I loved Teen Wolf. It was like very similar vibes, and Dylan O'Brien was, I think his character name was like Styles or something, and I just loved it at the time. Like I can't put my stamp on it like
right now.
Right now, but at the time I loved it so much because it was also like very like werewolfy and magical and mystical and super good. I love those kind of shows.
Yeah, I want magic to be in my everyday reality, so this is how I make that happen.
Yes, exactly. Like and anything like magical, castle-y time period.
I feel like that's such a good show to watch in the fall too. It's just the vibes.
I know. I was just thinking about that too. I was like vampire vibes right now. So true. Another like magical witchy show that is definitely darker is, I think it's like The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and it's on Netflix. And she is a witch, and she lives with her two aunties, she calls them, and they're both witches, and it is magical, and it does go more towards like the darker side, I guess, of, I'll say, like witchcraft, but it's still a good show, and there's like a little bit of love in there, and it's interesting and a very good like this time of year type of show, like very like spooky, I would say.
Oh, okay. I should have looked this up prior to this episode because you just reminded me of the show that I was so obsessed with. It's on Netflix. There's only 4 seasons, which I was really upset about because it was like one of my all-time favorite shows, and it was like, I think it's called The Witches of Eastwick. I know there's a movie called that too, but it's a TV show. It's something like that, and it was so good. Oh, I loved it, and I'm so sad there were only 4 seasons. But yeah, I love anything witchy. I actually haven't watched that one. I think I maybe watched like the first episode, and it didn't pull me in right away, so I didn't. But I might have to go back now.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's like the best ever, but I do, if just like for this time of the year for spooky witchy vibes, like yeah, it's good. Like I used to watch scary movies. I'm definitely not a scary movie girly anymore. Like I cannot do it.
Same.
So this is like, it gives like that spooky aspect without it being like too scary, you know, where like
I don't want to invite evil into my heart or mind, and I feel like that's what a lot of horror films are doing nowadays. So yeah, I also don't watch them anymore. I did used to, and I mean, I'm a makeup artist and I love doing the SFX makeup and all of that, but I just don't want more darkness in my reality than already must be for balance, you know? That said, a comedy I really like is Sex Ed. Have you watched it yet? Oh, it's so funny. You have to watch it. It's British, and it's just like the characters are in high school, but they're like very normal, realistic characters. It's like a little bit grungy at times, but it's hilarious. Like they have so many good scenes. The main character, his name is Otis, and his mom is a sex therapist, and it's just hysterical. Like definitely, if you like comedies, especially British comedies, definitely give it a watch because it's a great one.
Okay, so I have one that's like, it's kind of a comedy just because it's like the situations they get into is funny, but it has like more like drama and stuff in it, and I'm pretty sure you've watched it, but Good Girls.
Oh, I love that show.
Yeah,
I'm in love with the bad guy.
That's like such a good show. I don't think it is technically a comedy, but it is just,
it is funny,
comical. Yeah, and I really like all the actors and actresses in it. Like they do such a good job, and I would consider her like the main character. She has red hair and she's in Mad Men. I love her. Like she does such a good job, and I recommend that. Like
it's so like full of drama and spiciness, and like it's funny because they're just such like average regular like moms, and then they're doing wild stuff. Like they get into trouble. It's hilarious. It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah. I have like a few more period pieces that I could recommend. So I am still working my way through it, but I'm watching The Crown. It is more like documentary style than some of these other shows, so I do find it to be slightly boring at times, but it's still very interesting to learn about like the history of the crown a little bit. And you know, they're in Scotland a lot because they have an estate there, and you get to listen to people with accents and in the castle
Okay,
and in
I'm
pretty
sold.
homes, like, so it's good. And the ironic part of this is that sometimes it gets really deep and dark, but it's like based off real events. I'm like, the things that happen like trigger me more than like stuff that are happening in like fake shows,
Wow,
because
that's
there's
interesting.
like things in our history that have happened, and like
Yeah.
I just watched the episodes about Princess Diana, and it's like devastating. Like it hurts. Like it's like ugh.
Yeah.
So it can be heavy, but it's really interesting and based on a real story, and
that's cool.
Let's see, and then The Great. Have you watched that one?
I don't think I have. No.
That one's on Hulu. That one, it's like a little raunchy, and a little bit of a comedy, but it is also more of a period piece. It is about Catherine the Great, and she basically gets wed off to a prince in Russia. And she kind of ends up wanting to take over, and so it's kind of the story of that, and it's really interesting. Again, the fashion, so good. They're in Russia, which is like different than a lot of shows that we watch, so it's very interesting, and it's good, but again, it's raunchy, so just keep that in mind. And then I also, Poldark was a really good one. That is like in the English countryside. He is like, he's not like a lord or anything, but he's a little bit more like upstanding. He basically marries or gets in a relationship with his like servant girl or something, and they like start a life together.
Drama.
It's good. And I swear a lot of the filming was in Ireland or something, so it's really pretty scenery. Oh, Peaky Blinders.
Oh, Peaky Blinders is so good. I'm so glad you brought that up because I almost forgot about it. I'm obsessed. I'm addicted. I know it's bad, but I like it.
So good. That's why
I also kind of have a thing for Tommy. I don't know.
Cillian Murphy, like, bless his heart. In the real world, he's like the chillest guy ever. He's an Irishman. He doesn't really know what social media is. Like, he just chills and vibes. And then in the show, he's like the most hardcore dude. I'm like,
gangster. That's all I have to say. It's so good. It's so good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's so much drama. There's definitely violence, a lot of violence, but I'm obsessed. And even though they're like bad, I want them to win. So
I know they're like, but they're trying to beat other bad guys that are worse than them. So.
Yeah, so it's fine.
It's fine. They're the better option.
He's so like conniving and sneaky and always one step ahead. Like, so I love
smart. It. Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Just like charming and
and they dress so well. Mm-hmm. I love it.
Vibes.
Men's fashion.
Yes. So true. So true. Grimm and Supernatural, similar concept. They're kind of a procedural show. So it's like each show, it's like a case they're working on or something. And but both are very magical, like magical creatures and like defeating quote unquote evil, and it's really good. Both shows have very good like brotherhood, kind of like the Vampire Diaries, like you know, they have that like connection, that like brotherly connection storyline going on. Supernatural, it's a lot more common, I think, than Grimm, but Sam and Dean, like, this is the perfect season again to watch a show like this. It is a little darker, and yeah, I recommend that. And then Grimm, it actually goes into like German fairy tales, and this is actually kind of realistic because a lot of like these German fairy tales are actually like pretty horrific.
Yeah.
So and if you've ever heard of like Grimm's fairy tales, like, it's an actual thing. So they're basically like hunting these grim slash super, or so the grim is hunting these like supernatural creatures that are, you know, causing bad things to happen or whatever. And it's another really like magical, spooky.
It is spooky season. I'm glad we did this episode today.
I'm like, I want to watch all these.
Yes. So that reminds me, if you love the Vampire Diaries, the Originals is a spinoff. It's kind of like a prequel, and it is just as good as the Vampire Diaries. I love it. Also has the whole kind of brotherly aspect in it. And then there's a spinoff from that as well. The name is escaping me, but I'm sure that if you just Google it, it'll come up as a sequel to that. But that third one is a bit more like teenage vibes because it's about a teenage girl, but it's still pretty good, and it has some of the characters from the Originals and the Vampire Diaries in it, which I thought was cool too.
Love that. I haven't watched any of the spinoffs, but I've seen them, like, you know, when I'm like looking for something.
The Originals is so worth a watch because it's like a more grown-up version of the Vampire Diaries, and it's about the original vampires. It's like, oh, so good.
Perfect.
So good.
Yes. Okay, that just reminded me, like, Supernatural has like vampires and stuff in it too, so it's kind of fun. Similar, I would say, to like Good Girls that I enjoy is called The Flight Attendant, and the main character is a woman from The Big Bang Theory, like the blonde girl, and I don't remember what her name is, but she does such a good job, and it's like a little mysterious. It's like a little crimey, I guess you could say, and it's just super interesting. The last season, they were actually in both seasons, because she's a flight attendant, they're like flying to other countries, and then she gets like dragged into like being a part of a crime scene that she had nothing to do with, but it appears like she did, and she kind of gets like involved in like, there are crazy twists and turns that you would literally never expect, and it's so interesting. Like, it really draws you in. Like, you don't want to stop watching, which I love that about it. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna have to check that out. On that note, another kind of relatable show that I thought was so funny was Working Moms. I have not watched all of it, but it was hilarious. It was so funny. So, of course, we love British films. But this show is so good. It's called The Gentleman, and it's about this guy who inherits like this palace, and he becomes a duke. But his dad on the low was like selling weed and growing weed to like pay for all of the palace's stuff. So he ends up like having to take over this weed business basically, or he's going to be like killed or something. So he has no choice. And there's so much drama in it, and it's so good. And like he's lead character, you know?
I think I've seen that pop up on like Netflix or something, and I've added it to my list, but I haven't watched it
it's
yet.
Worth a watch. It is worth a watch. It's really good. And of course, you know, it's being filmed in Britain in palaces and stuff, so we love that.
Like, all these shows are like the same but different. Okay, so I think I've made it through my intense shows. So some lighter ones that I like to watch. This show, I don't know why it's funny to me. It's the main character is really, she's a doctor, but she's not really that smart. But it's The Mindy Project. I don't know why. It's just such a good laugh for me. I like to throw that on when I just, you know, want something like silly. Friends is another good one.
I was like, gonna mention Friends.
Yes,
yeah,
like just lighthearted, just happy.
The thing is, I grew up watching that show, and they were my friends. Okay, and I was watching Friends when they aired the last episode in real time, and I bawled my eyes out for like an hour and a half because I was like, no, it can't be over, because they become your friends. They really do. Like, it's so good. It's so realistic. It's such like a tight-knit group of just realism. Like, it's so good.
Another show that I've been watching with kind of similar vibes is Sex in the City. This is my first time watching it, but it's just like, again, it's like New York, kind of realistic.
The girls,
like,
the fashion.
Yeah, I love watching
the drama, the
drama.
sex, the city. It's so good. It is really good.
Yeah, so I've been enjoying that. And then
the shoes.
personalities. She's like ahead of her time with her little like blog. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. And then New Girl is like just another happy.
So good and funny.
And
It's
funny.
hilarious.
Yes. Okay, so those are my comedy shows, and then I do actually have a few reality TV shows that I have to share, just because we all love a reality TV moment. If you say you don't, you're lying. So I actually really enjoy watching the Kardashians. I've watched all the seasons, and I like watching it because I think it's interesting how people have this perspective that they don't have any talent and that they can't do anything, and you know, they're where they are for a reason, and they are extremely good marketers. They are good at selling. They're good at selling, and they have a really amazing life, and I just find that really like inspiring and interesting, and to see like the lives of like these really rich people. Like I think that's really interesting, and they have, you know, their family's really close, which is something that I did not have. So seeing like the dynamic between like the sisters and all the family, and like that is like really cute to me. Like I love seeing that. So
I really love too that like a lot of times we idolize people who are famous or super wealthy, and it really just shows that they are real people with real relationships and real problems. And it's cool to see inside the lives of somebody who has a lot of what we might desire to have, you know, and see how it feels to live their life. Like, I think it's a really cool show to watch, especially if you want an inside look to somebody like that's life. Like, they are allowing the public to really see what their lives are like.
Yeah. So I think it is super interesting for that reason. And then Queer Eye, obviously, most people have probably watched that. Super inspiring fashion, like people literally, they're going in and helping them like reinvent their whole life, and it's so positive. It's like the most positive show I've ever watched in my entire life. Like, it's just so happy, and it reminds me of What Not to Wear, which was on TLC when I was younger, and I just love that. But it's just even more of like a more positive and inspirational version of that.
Okay, I have to check it out because I haven't seen it. And I did love What Not to Wear.
No, you have to. It's, do you know even what I'm talking about when I say that? Oh my God. That's unbelievable. Okay, you need to watch Queer Eye, because it's basically these 5 gay guys. They come in. Well, I guess I shouldn't say guys. I don't know what they want to be called, so I won't say that. But they go in and they like basically someone's family member like signs them up and they're like, they really need your help. And they're people who have kind of like really let themselves go. Like, they're not looking their greatest, you know. Usually they have a pretty good career, but they're like just not putting effort into themselves anymore. And maybe something kind of tragic happened and got them off track. So these guys come in. One of them does like hair and makeup, Jonathan. So Jonathan will come in and like freshen up their hair and, you know, give them a skincare routine. And a lot of times they're like older guys, but like, you know, you kind of see it anyone across the board. There's Bobby comes in and he will either like redo a room in their house, or he'll redo like multiple rooms in their house. And then Tan gets them a new wardrobe. Like, you get to go see them like try on new clothes. And then oh my gosh, what's his name? One of the guys teaches them how to like cook a good meal, or like, you know, kind of encourages them to like eat a little healthier or whatever. And there's another guy who's kind of like the counselor who will like talk them through like something heavy, you know, whatever. And at the end, there's usually an event that they're kind of preparing for. So it's like a work event or a party or whatever. And so at the end, it's like the big reveal. They have their family there, and they like come in as like the new them, and it's just like
I love that. I honestly
cute.
like want to do that for people. Like I've always been like I want to give like a full on makeover, like because obviously I do makeup, and I'm like I can't do hair, but but I could help them pick out clothes, and I can be their life coach. And like I want to do that. It'd be so much fun. That's so cool.
It's so cute.
I love that.
You have to watch it. You have to watch it. It's like Rio and I watch it, and we're just like after it, we're like crying happy tears. We're like, like I've never seen something more positive in my entire life.
I'm gonna have to check it out for sure.
So then along those lines, Tan France, who does like the fashion part in that show, he has his own show now on Netflix called Next in Fashion, and it's basically Project Runway.
Okay.
But it's with Tan and, you know, different people, so it's like kind of like a fashion competition show, which I love as well because it's kind of reality. So I love a good like competition TV show moment.
And we love fashion.
Yeah, so I love that as well. So I recommend that.
Okay, one of my binge-worthy reality shows is Love is Blind.
UK version.
Oh, the UK version. I'm also in love with someone on that show. So I absolutely love like the psychology behind love, and I love like watching these shows and being like, that person has these subconscious beliefs, you know, and just seeing them kind of like work through that and like get to know each other and seeing how it plays out. And then I love that they give like a year later update, and sometimes even years later update, to show if like these people actually made it. And some people do and some people don't. It seems like they're divinely like made for each other. And it's like, wow, like, I don't know, like happenstance that they just both signed up for this show and met behind a wall. And then they look like they're meant to be together, and they have so much in common, and like end up having this amazing relationship. Like, I love sitting there and like psychoanalyzing everyone on the show.
I know, it's so good. And you can learn a lot. I feel like you can learn a lot about yourself, and, you know, just learn a lot by watching these people, because you think a lot about like, what would I do in that situation? Or like, you know, it really gets you like thinking about like relationships and like how you can be better too and stuff. It's like, it's so interesting. And yeah, I just finished the UK one, and it was just like, I love it. I love it even more.
And you know, okay, so part of me, like the logical part of me is like, you need to date somebody outside of that and for a longer period of time than that to be able to like develop a healthy enough relationship to actually get married and have long term, because there's so many things that they're not getting the experience of. Like, for example, to me, it's very important that I get to stay in my feminine and have a man lead and have a man plan dates and pursue me. And they don't get that. Like, they don't get any of that. And they do live with each other for a while. I don't know how realistic the circumstances are. I don't think they actually move all of their stuff. Sometimes it's one of their apartments in real life, and sometimes I think it's one that they like rent in between where they live, or things like that. So it's really interesting. And I do think, though, that love and relationships are partially a choice. And so a lot of these people are just choosing faith, you know, and they're just like choosing to make it work. And then there's other people who are like, never mind, no, like this was just a TV show, like this, I can't do this in real life, you know?
Yeah, I think that the people that are the relationships that are successful out of that show are when the two people are ready, they're just like, I'll have faith and jump all in, like let's do this.
Yeah. And I mean, it takes a lot of not only like bravery and faith, but like personal development and being willing to really look in the mirror and work on yourself as an individual, as well as within this new relationship now. And it's cool to watch. I find it so interesting.
And instead of someone getting to know you, or you getting to know someone over a year or 2 or 3, you have to like spill all your beans like out on the table in like a few week period. Like that's intense and hard. Like I can't even imagine.
No.
So,
and I mean, like, part of me is like, I think that we do have this knowing if somebody resonates with us. Like, I do think that we have that immediately upon meeting somebody, but also I've had like an infatuation early on that later on wears off. And part of me is like, is that to do with looks? And so when you have the wall, then you don't get that. Or I also see people on that show who I feel like are really like romanticizing and fantasizing the other person. Whereas when they actually meet them and see their real life, then they're like, oh, never mind. Like, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. So it's really interesting.
Yeah. And that's why it's an experiment. Like, it literally is. Like,
yeah, it really is. And I mean, like, kudos to them for doing it in front of millions of people, because I'm sure that's difficult. Like, I know there are some people, I want to say characters, but they're not. It's reality TV, you know, who go home and get a lot of backlash and whatever. And then there's also so many who get like all of a sudden hundreds of thousands or millions of followers when they never had anything like that in their life before. And I'm sure that's like a massive reality check and like life change, you know?
Totally. Okay, so another British TV show that I love is The Great British Baking Show.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
If you haven't watched The Great British Baking Show, do yourself a favor and go watch it.
I do. I've always just loved like baking, like amazing wedding cakes. I loved watching on like TLC, and yeah, I don't know, like it's inspiring. It's fun to watch, and they make beautiful desserts and breads and all kinds of stuff.
So cute.
It's
like,
cute.
It's so stinking cute. And I like the earlier seasons when Mary Berry's still there.
Yeah.
I love Mary Berry and Paul.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, it's precious. I can say though that they do have some really corny jokes sometimes, and I'm like, just cut to the next scene.
So
come on.
Cute though. It's so good. Okay, I think that's all that I had, but I do have like do you have any other TV shows?
I don't think so off the top of my head.
So I wanted to kind of come back to this concept of like, you know, protecting yourself when you're watching TV, or like making a conscious decision not to watch certain things when they're like really negative or dark. So I used to watch, I thought of two in particular that I used to watch, and at the time I loved them. And then over time, you know, as I became more conscious, I realized like how like detrimental they were, like how dark they truly were, and how they can really impact you negatively. So I just wanted to share two shows that I recommend not watching, and one of those being American Horror Story. I think I watched up to the hotel season, and when I was watching that season, I realized like truly how it's kind of like disgusting, honestly, like
grotesque.
Yeah. It's like so bad, and disturbing, and just, it's really horrible. Like, yeah, that's really what I have to say. And I was a person who really enjoyed it at one point. Like, I really thought I loved it. But it is like, it's not something that I want to be taking in. It's like way far beyond like my threshold at this point of like what I'm willing to like let in. Like, I truly feel like when I'm watching it, like it's hard to like protect yourself from that energy.
Evil has an appeal, and a lot of us are very interested. Like when you drive past a car crash, you look, you know. But with TV, you can make a conscious decision to say, like, I am not going to let that in. And I think that that's one of those shows for me that I won't. And I have watched it, and I did enjoy what I watched, but I also felt gross.
Yes.
Like, it's too realistic. It's too disturbing. It does seep into your subconscious, and you might not even notice it. And, you know, it's interesting. I was talking to a person I went to school with, and he was talking about his kids watching something along those lines and wanting to be that for Halloween. I'm a makeup artist, and he asked me to do it, and I said, I won't do that for a child. And I said, you should be careful what you're letting your children watch, because you might not realize, and they might not realize, but it does affect their subconscious. It does affect how they're feeling. It does affect how they're acting and what they're attracting into their reality. And you do not want to attract that stuff. And it might seem harmless. You might think, oh no, it's just a TV show. But if it's affecting how you feel, it is affecting your life. And don't take that lightly, because it's not light when it's changing your life. And I think the one thing that I don't love about current society and all of these streaming services is that they advertise really negative shows and movies to us all the time.
Yes.
All the time. You have to be careful and conscious of what you're taking in. You do.
Yes. Oh my gosh, the commercials for like scary movies is literally the worst. Like, you should have to be able to okay that before
they show up on YouTube all the time, and it's like, I don't want my kid to see that. Like, it's disturbing. It annoys me and grosses me out. Like, I skip as fast as I can.
Yes, I get actually scared with some of them. Like, I have to have like the remote in my hand. Like, I can't. I hate it. So another show that I had watched was Handmaid's Tale, and I highly recommend not watching that as well, because that energy is really dark and very realistic, and just not something that I would ever want to have recreated in this world, in this life. Like, I want nothing to do with that energy. Like, it's really, really dark, and I don't know, in the end, does it work out? I don't know, because I stopped watching, but it's just a little too I can't think of the term for it, but I'm like, no, like, we do not need that energy. We do not need our attention there. Like, we need to focus on like creating a greater future, and not focus on like something that very realistically could be brought to life.
I would even say, if you are feeling sad, depressed, worried, if you have a tendency to complain a lot and focus on the negative, which is easy. People often say, oh, I'm so tired, I feel sick, my back hurts, this, like, everything's wrong. If you are that kind of person, do not watch these TV shows that have negativity in them. You do not need any more of that in your life. Do everything you can to focus on what is good, so you can change your train of thought, because your subconscious has taken over, and it is habitual for you to focus on that negativity. And watching these TV shows is going to just amplify that and just perpetuate that cycle, and you don't want that. But if you can watch these TV shows and enjoy it and go through the ups and downs and not take it too personally and into your energy, then great, it's entertainment. But
I think it comes down to like your mindfulness when you're watching something. And that's what I noticed. Like, I noticed when I watched those things, when I was done, like, I felt yucky or I felt bad. Like, I didn't feel good after. I felt worse. So just be mindful of like how things make you feel, and how, if you're allowing them to influence your energy. And if it's making you feel better, like you're watching Queer Eye and you're crying happy tears, like, I think that's great. But if it's something that is more negative, just make sure you're protecting yourself from it, or not watching it at all.
I would say Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon and even Vampire Diaries are all kind of shows that I would just be very mindful of, because I've definitely watched episodes and been like, ugh, and just had to be like careful of like, okay, not going to carry this energy on with me. Like, okay, maybe I'm going to watch a little less of that this week, because like, it's just too much, you know?
I think something that's helpful with that is like, when you're done, again, don't watch them before you go to bed. Once you're done, with a pretty deep episode, do something that brings you joy, or, if you still want to watch TV, watch something lighter to like, kind of like
dissipate that energy.
Like watch Friends, watch Queer Eye, watch something happy, watch the Great British Baking Show, like just to like cleanse that out, because I think that can be really helpful. So that's not like the last thing on your mind.
Now, if I watch something like that, I usually like go take a bath and read or something, but I can say, even when I was younger and I did watch horror movies and I was not very like consciously aware or mindful, I would always want to watch a comedy after, just naturally, because I was like, I need to just lighten the mood, like I just need to like let that go. And I think that that's really helpful and like important to do, because you don't want to go to bed feeling that and thinking about that, because then you're going to dream about that, continue to perpetuate the feeling, wake up feeling like that, and then act with that feeling throughout the whole next day, and maybe the next day, and maybe forever if you're not careful.
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. Like, you guys tell us what your favorite TV shows are. Let us know if you've watched any of those, what you think. Super interesting, and I'd love to find some new like magical.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know like there are so many others, but this episode's long enough. So let us know if you want another episode like this, or maybe we'll talk about favorite movies or something. But please comment and share yours below. And with that, we're gonna pull a card.
Okay, so for the message that we will leave you with, we're pulling from the Wild Mystic Oracle deck, which I really, really love this. Ooh, so we've got a peacock, and it says confidence, and it looks like it is standing in front of the sun, kind of being lit up by the sun. If you're watching on YouTube or Hulu, you should be able to see. It's always nice when you can reference the card, because you can come up with your own interpretation of what it might mean.
Okay, so it says peafowl. This card represents self-confidence and assuredness. Often associated with vanity or pride, the beautiful display of the peafowl has long been venerated by artists, authors, playwrights, and philosophers. Despite negative associations, pride in oneself, self-love, and confidence are important parts of our positive self-esteem, which this card encourages. This card reminds you that the confidence can be key to your success and urges you to take pride in how far you've come. If we read the peafowl through the lens of Greek mythology, the bird is associated with the goddess Hera, who gifts the creature with hundreds of eyes, which they hold within their tails. Thus, the peafowl has also become a symbol of watchfulness. Interesting. This card may signify attention and vigilance, or a warning not to let one's guards down. It may also be seen as a symbol of theatrical pursuits, performance, or confidence when under the gaze of others. Shadow reading. A shadow reading of the peafowl card might warn against arrogance, vanity, and self-aggrandizement. Remember that just as Hera's gifted eyes on a peacock's tail remain vigilant of others, they may also be vigilant of the self. Do not be afraid to turn your own eyes inward and ask yourself if the confidence you have is earned. The element is earth. The flora is cedar. That's a perfect one to be putting under your pillow right now. Celandine, ginger, motherwort, and neroli. Stones are citrine, fuchsite, hematite, and agate. Spellwork: imbuing someone with confidence, luck, magic, urging an arrogant person to change their ways. I think it was interesting that it's talking about performance and theatrical and watchfulness, but it is interesting because when we started this episode, we talked a bit about how it can help you manifest, you know. So also, if you want to be like a certain person, you can kind of start to act like them, but it's important that you really embody true confidence, which comes from self-love.
Yeah. I don't think I have anything to add to that.
Yeah. All right. Well, let us know what you think, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for being here and helping us raise the frequency. We love you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.